I'm here with Matthias from The Spirit to talk about their latest record, Songs Against Humanity, out October 25th on AOP Records. First of all, thank you very much for taking the time to join me for this conversation. I've been listening to you guys since your debut record, but this is our first time actually sitting down and talking about your music. So, first of all, once again, thank you very much for taking the time.
Hey, thanks you for having me. Glad to finally talk to you because I remember too the you did an a reaction video for or like a review of the first album. I remember that. I watched it back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, that's a long time ago. So let's talk about this record. First of all, the title of the album caught my attention immediately. So let me ask you this. Do you have something against humanity?
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't? I mean, just take a look outside. What's going on in on your street, in your city, in your country, and on this whole planet. I mean, there's more than enough reasons to dislike the humankind, definitely.
Doesn't that create an interesting paradox? Because on one hand, we have this inherent thing within us that we want to survive, we want to live, we want to perhaps live forever, but at the same time, we despise what we are a part of, which is that humanity. Isn't that quite the paradox?
I mean, I don't know if we do, if all people do that. I certainly do. I think it's not. It's. I mean, I'm still here. I'm still dealing with people, It's not that everything is bad, There are always some sparks in the dark, some good people. And um yeah, but in my opinion, what happens like I don't know. Yeah, lately, like in the last years, in the last 10 years, 15 years, I realized a complete yeah, it goes complete downwards with the people in general, especially like in the Western world, where I see more things. I don't know how things have been, like in China 10 years ago. I've never been there. I don't see things how they are going there. But in the Western world, what I hear, what I see, what I witness, in person, not just like via my phone or via the laptop, it's quite yeah scary and terrifying because there's so many changes happening, but it's not happening like at once, it happens over time. So every year stuff happens. And when you look back after 10 years and you think like, how the fuck did we end up here, and that's the thing. So it's a small, every year some small things that comes together, and after a while you have like this big pile of shit. Like even Rome didn't end at one day, it was like over a century where this the biggest empire of the world just collapsed,
Yeah, it's funny because Rome wasn't built in a day and it didn't collapse in a day either. So everything takes
No.
you take your time to get to where you are, and then it's also going to take your time to fall from that pedestal. I always believe that each record a band creates is a snapshot of the moment in which they're in. Obviously, from a lyrical standpoint, from a theme standpoint, I can totally understand the world around you impacted this record. But from your own creative standpoint, where do you pull in your influences in the direction that you want to give on any given record?
um what you mean, from the lyrics or from music
From a
wise?
musical standpoint, because from the lyrics is obviously the world around you influenced this record, the title of the record and the lyrics. But musically, where do you how do you merge those influences that you're going towards the lyrics to what you want the record to sound like?
The lyrics comes always last. So the music is done, and then comes the lyrics. I have to finish the lyrics. I have to finish the guitars, and the drums. And when they're done, then I go like to the lyrics and solos and stuff like that. Um, and the music, it's always like it always depends on what time in life I am at that moment, how I am. Um, for the last record, I was like curious. I wanted to improve myself as a musician, you know, tried something new. So I experimented a lot with of Clarity and Galactic Structures, our third album. I added like a lot of, you know, prog influence because I listened to a lot of prog rock and stuff like that. So I wanted to see how I can implement this kind of stuff and our time signatures in our overall sound. And with this new record, I was not in the mode at all to do something like that. I had a very tough year, 2023. And when I was finally able to play guitar again, I had some big health issues. I was not in the mode like to experiment and do all this kind of stuff and spend like weeks and weeks working on one song, you know. I was just pissed and I had a lot of anger in me, and I just released that, and that's why this album is like the songs are much more, you know, straightforward, more punchy, more in your face than on the previous record. So it's always like in, you know, as I'm like the songwriter of the band, it always depends how I am in life, where I am at this moment when I do the songwriting, and that has a big effect on the how the music is at the end, you know.
It's funny that you say that because that was one of the things that I noticed right away when I was listening to this record is that this record has a more direct approach. It feels more penetrating, a little bit more narrow sound-wise than the predecessor. And I was wondering where that was coming from, and now it turns out it's coming from you just being pissed off.
Yeah, of course. It was it was also time pressure because, as I said, like it was like half a year or something like that. I couldn't play a guitar at all, and when I came back, I always booked the studios around 1 year ahead. So there is usually no music written, or almost no music written. But I booked the studios anyway because I know myself, I can be quite lazy. And when we released the first album, I said to myself like, hey, for the next couple of years, every 2 year you will release an album. And I want to stick to that plan, to the schedule. And so I booked the studios in advance, so I have some pressure. Usually I can't. That's how it works for me. I need some pressure, and then I get like stuff done, you know. But here, you know, when you lose like half a year of songwriting, then yeah, the studio appointments came like quite close. So I had to really, really, yeah, work some hours every day to get it done. And the tough part is like I'm quite picky in case of riffs, you know. Like from album number one, for me, it's like I want one killer riff after the other. And it's like quite easy to have something like, okay, that sounds okay, and you use that, you know, or you have some backups on your computer from riffs from like years ago, and you just use something like that. I don't do that at all. I don't save any riffs. If something is not good, what I'm working on, it's not good for that song that I'm working at that moment, I don't keep it. I only work always for one song. When this song is done, I go to the next one. So the thing is, if everything goes well, hey, everything is good. But when there is no inspiration and you're sitting there for days, weeks, and nothing happens, you know, then yeah, it's quite frustrating. And then the pressure is getting really enormous. But I realized this time that I don't need like to work like 4 or 6 or 8 weeks on one song. Um, in the first 2 weeks of January this year, I wrote like 2 songs of the album, and I was like, okay, is that good? Because it's supposed to take longer, you know, something good, you know, needs a long time, a lot of work. And when they were done, I showed them to Manuel, our drummer, and he was like, "Dudes, that's awesome." I was like, "Yeah, it is, right?" But I was like, "It's so fast within 1 week." I mean, for one band, it's like 1 week of songwriting, like 4, 5, 6 hours every day. It's a lot, but for me, it isn't. That's not how it works for me. So it was quite interesting to realize like that I can write songs like that as well, you know.
That's really interesting to go through your mindset. So, when you look at the four records and you look at your evolution as a songwriter, from what record to what record has been the biggest leap in your own growth?
Hey, I can't tell you because there's always something. You know, like the first album, it was just like, hey, let's do something. Let's do an album. What music I wanted to hear from other bands, you know, to do that, you know. And because I got like I'm a bit lost in the last 10, 15 years with like extreme metal, what's coming out. I don't say like that we are the something new, something special or whatsoever, but just as a music lover, I'm quite bored with most of the new bands and most new music that came out in the last 10, 15 years. So I was like, hey, let's make an album like what I want another band is doing, so I can listen it and enjoy it. And that was the whole idea about the first album. So the second one, the big step was like, I didn't think back then that I can hold the level of the first one. Second one was Cosmic Terror. And that was like, that was really tough to write this album because I didn't think I could do it, you know? So that was a big one because the album was like quite a success and we got quite a hype with this one. Unfortunately, immediately afterwards came the Corona stuff. Um, the third one is a special one because I did something completely different with the songwriting. As I mentioned before, like more, experimenting more prog influences and stuff like that. There's like the first song on this album has like 30 something and time signal changes, There's like lots of stuff going on. And at the same time, I want to try that it doesn't sound too crazy so people can still enjoy the music. But as a songwriter, this album was like quite a big step for me, like to get into all these new kind of territories. And I remember me and Manuel, the drummer, we had the most fun ever in the rehearsal room working on these songs because they were like really tricky to play with all the stuff that's happening there. But it was really fun with this album. With the third one, I became much better songwriter. And now with the fourth one, yeah, then it's different again of it. It still sounds like the spirit, but on this one, I remember when Victor Santura, we recorded again everything besides drums in his studio. He's the guy from Triptychon and Dark Fortress. Um, and he gave me a call when he was done with the master, and he said like, "Hey Matthias, I just want to call," because he never calls Sunday. I know that's his holy day. I would never write him an email or something like that, but he called me on Sunday, and I was like, "Hey,
You know it's
that's weird."
serious. You know
Yeah,
it's
yeah. And then he was like, "Hey, I'm just telling you, like, hey, I did the master right now, but so but anyway, the reason I wanted to talk to you is like, dude, I just heard again the whole album, and dude, it just made click. Dude, there are just hits on this album." And I was like, okay. Hey, when you say that, that means a lot because I was way too close. And now, like with a couple of months distance to the album, I can say like the you know it's very catchy compared to the previous records. We have like one or two hits on every album, which are also always the singles. But on this one, it's like the whole album. And yeah, the songs are really really strong. It was quite impossible to choose a song. Me and the label were like, hey, I don't know, just pick any song. It doesn't matter. They're all good. So
good problem to have
yeah, sure, sure,
when you
sure.
get to that. And you know, you mentioned the more proggy uh, influences, if you will, on the previous record. This one being a little bit more direct. I noticed that immediately. Is there one element of the band sound that you will never tinker with?
Hey, I don't know. I mean, there will always be like melodies will always be we will be there. I will never drift into like some 90s Norwegian black metal thing or something like that, where it's just like more cold riffs driven or something like that. No, it's for me it's like important to have these melody aspects to for the to create some emotions. And yeah, hey, I don't know. Hey, I can't answer the question because I don't know what happens maybe with the next album. I can tell you now, like, hey, no, it will always be like this, or I don't. This has to be always like the end, and with the next one, it isn't. For
Uh,
me, for me, for example, for me, it was always the thing like really would love. I love keyboards. I love keyboards with black metal for the atmosphere part and
mhm.
everything. But I'm a huge Rush fan. Rush is one of the greatest bands for me of all time, and
I'm
one of
Canadian,
my
so
top. Awesome! So you heard of them, I guess.
I've heard of them. Yeah, a little bit.
So once in an interview, Geddy Lee said like that they only do stuff in the studio that they can also reproduce live as a three-piece. You know, that's why they have like all these pedal on the ground, so they can play the keyboards with their foot while playing bass or guitar. You know, and live shows. I always liked it, like when, for example, Subdivision or other songs, when Geddy goes to the keyboards and then there is no bass. You know, everything is live. When he said like we only do in the studio what we can reproduce on stage, I was like, hey, that's super cool. So no, you know, no backing tracks, nothing. And already to find like to have a band with 4 people, it's always already something like impossible when you start a new band, you know, to find people to start a band with. That's always the, some people are like, is it a label or booking agencies? Like, no, just find the right people you can work with. You know, that's the hardest part. And I was thinking like about like I wanted keyboards, but no way I find another person, you know. It's easier to find a drummer, what is already impossible, like to find a good keyboard player, you know, in a metal band. So we skipped the keyboards, and on the last record, the previous one, I used a Moog sequencer. And I did that because I could do it on stage, you know. I said like, hey, no keyboards for the Spirit because we have to do it live. But I could do the thing live. I program it on stage, and then it gets louder and louder. And then when the sequence is running, I skip into I switch to the guitar and do stuff. Um, you know, you never know what happens with the next album, what we are doing, if we do something completely different or if you continue like this. I don't know. So back to your question, I can't really give you an answer to that because I don't want to be the one that's like, hey, a couple of years ago he said that and now he's doing the complete opposite thing, you know?
Yeah, you don't want to stay married to those words. You want to have the freedom to move where you want to go.
Sure.
Speaking of the sound on this record, and one of the things that I noticed immediately was the bass. The bass pops quite a bit throughout the entire album. Like it's very noticeable. It comes into the forefront a lot. Well, what was the thought process behind having the bass that predominant in the mix?
Dude, I have no idea. I realized that a couple of weeks later. It depends like on which wh where I listen to it. It's like usually it's always fine, but I had like some speakers here in my flat where I noticed it like in the bits where it's a bit too much. The overall bass sound, not just like the bass, the instrument, but the overall bass sound. Um, the thing is with the mix, that's like Victor's job when we are there. Of course, I'm there during the mix, but you know when you work like for weeks, you're in the studios and work on one album, and we never spend more time for any record longer than on this one. Then you get death, and I keep this kind of stuff to completely to Victor with the sound. I have like here, okay, push here a bit the guitars or do this and this. That's what I'm there, but the overall sound. Um, that's all you know all the things that this Victor is doing. So there was no idea to have like this exact sound how it is on the record right now. Um, the bass in general is a bit more dominant on this record. It's just like tiny things, you know, because we had like Linus Klausenitzer. I don't know if you know him. It's one of the best bass players in metal we have in Europe. He played in Obscura. Yeah, he played like for 5 or 4 albums on in Obscura. You know,
Sure.
I think he even founded the band with Stefan. I don't know actually right now, but anyway, he's a super good bass player. And in the studio when I prepared the bass, I was like, okay, what would Linus do? You know, like all these small harmonies in there and lines and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not a bass player, but yeah, the bass is doing much more. It's like small parts in the album that the bass is doing more.
I
But the
think from
overall sound,
all the records you guys have done, this is the one where the bass has a little bit more work.
yeah, sure, definitely, definitely. That's something that I had in mind doing the songwriting, like to have when there is some space, hey, just use the bass, you know, because there are no keyboards. My vocal range is like very limited, and like to bring some more, you know, extra levels in there, you know. So that's why, yeah, there is a bit more going on with the bass. When the guitars are just playing a chord, then there is a bass line in there. I think it's, yeah, the the overall sound and the music benefited from it a lot.
You mentioned your vocals. How's that been for you? Do you find your development as a songwriter, as a guitar player, and as a vocalist, have they all grown and evolved at the same level, or there's one that has evolved more than the others?
No, my vocals didn't evolve at all. I'm a guitar player. I'm not a singer, you know. And as I mentioned before, find people to make a band, especially if you live not in one of the really big cities in Germany. It's quite impossible. And you know, back in the day, like, hey, we need a singer, but like, yeah, find a singer. I don't want more people in the band, you know. More people, more problems. That's always the thing. Like, so I went to the microphone, we tried it, and it was like, hey, that doesn't sound that bad, you know, and I stick for it. But I have no technique. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's just like pure force what I'm doing. I don't think it's good for my vocal, for my throat, as well, what I'm doing for my vocal cords. Um, I guess I got a bit better so that I'm not that exhausted, especially during live shows, like yeah, not to give like 110% all the time, what you can do quite easily on stage. Um, yeah, hey, I guess I improved a little bit in the last years, but of course I became my guitar playing and overall like songwriting became probably much better compared to the vocal thing. That's something like, yeah, what I'm doing because it's necessary, but I'm definitely not a very good singer.
You can get away with it being in a black metal band.
Hey, the important thing is like that it fits with the music, you know. That's the
Exactly,
point.
exactly. And speaking of black metal, let me ask you this: what does black metal mean to you?
First of all, I wouldn't consider us a black metal band because when I when I hear black metal, no offense, but when I hear black metal, the first picture I have in mind is guys that paint their faces on stage, and you hear just vocals and drums, and people that usually are not very good on their instruments. And I don't want when people are like, "Oh, the Spirit, it's a black metal band," that they have this in their mind, because there are a lots of black metal bands that are doing exactly that. And when I grow up, like black metal was for me the number one music genre, also in metal. Like in my early 20s, I just consumed black metal all the time. But when I became a better musician, more and more I realized, like, you know, I was on stage. I was at concerts looking on stage, and I was like, okay, they're doing stuff, but I just hear noise, you know. Some people like that. But for me, the more I became a better musician, and my ears got better, you know, like hearing stuff and things like that. And the more in my mid 20s, I dived into all the great prog rock from the late 60s, from the 70s, early 80s. My music taste changed a lot. So I always, when people ask us like, "What are you doing?" It's like a mixture of black and death metal, because there are both elements in there, and with lots of melodies. That's what I'm saying. But you know, black metal, for me, black metal really is the essence, is in the second wave, you know, in the early 90s. That's for me what black metal is. That gives me like goosebumps when I'm listening to those records, you know, like Shadow Throne from Satyricon, or um Anthems to the Viking at Dusk from Emperor, the greatest black metal record ever written. Yes, the Mysterium Satanas for me is just number two. And you know, this stuff. You know, people were. It was not just the music; it was the mindset as well of those people. And nowadays, seriously, when I see like 50 years old painting their faces on stage and doing like a clown show on stage, this has nothing to do with black metal. It's more like entertainment, and yeah, we're doing this black metal, and you have to do that. You need like spikes, and you need like you know, war paint, corpse paint, whatsoever. It's like something bittersweet, you know. I miss like the seriousness in black metal a lot nowadays.
Well, that was more than I was hoping for as far as an answer is concerned. I agree in a lot of it with you. I think black metal, at least for me, it's more of a mindset more than anything else. And then you can go with that mindset to whatever era better connects with the mindset that you see it being a part of. One last question for you. What's your plans for 2025? The album comes out October 25th. You're towards the end of the year. Are you planning anything towards the end of the year, but more so looking into 2025?
Yeah, sure. We will announce another tour across Europe, I think next month. So when the tour, when the release shows and the album is out, because right now I'm just drowning in work. It's so much to do. Actually, with you now, it's the last interview. I said to the promoters, like, hey guys, for the next week, no interviews, nothing. I still have like around like 100 vinyl and CDs to ship and prepare for the release shows next week. So yeah, when all this is done in like 2 weeks, we will announce another run, and then yeah, we have like lots of festivals next year in Europe. We will play the biggest shows we have ever played so far, the biggest stages. There's some really cool announcements in the next couple of weeks for next year. And hey, it depends like where the new album brings us. We definitely want to expand our you know, the way we how much we play live, because since the pandemic it was quite difficult to go like back, you know, where we left in 2020. So we have a new booking agency, so yeah, let's see where the new album goes, but I hope we can play much more live, um you know, expand our live activities to the rest of Europe, countries we haven't played before, and maybe with this album, North America, South America, maybe Australia, you know, like to go to those territories. But it all depends now how the album kicks in, you know, and how the people like it and how much new people we will reach with this record.
Well, if you guys come to Toronto, I'll take you to a brewery that has Rush beer. So you can have being German, I'm assuming you enjoy beer. So there's a brewery, a local brewery here in Toronto that has a specific Rush beer on tap, and I'll take you there to have some beers, some Rush beers.
Okay, so they have different kinds of beers, the Rush beers,
And
or just
the
the one?
the the brewery has a whole bunch of beers, but they did a partnership with Rush, and they have their own Rush beer on tap, and you can also buy cans to take it
Okay,
with you.
you know what it is, what kind of beer it is, the Rush
I don't,
beer?
I don't know where it is, but I can find out that information and send it to you.
And anyway, it's not that important. I was just curious. But hey, sure, if we come to Toronto, I will let you know, and then we will have some Rush beers, and maybe they
Yeah,
blast some Rush for us.
yeah. You can do a taste test and then tell everybody if the beer is as good as the music.
Difficult. I mean, it's what we're talking about, you know. But let's
I,
see, let's see.
I don't think it will be, but I we'll see, we'll see. Matthias, thank you very much for your time, man. I really appreciate talking to you after all these years of listening to your music. I wish you nothing but the best to you and the band into the release, and hopefully it'll be the success that you want it to be, and you guys will come to North America at some point in time. All the best.
Hey, thanks you for your time, and yeah, let's see. Maybe we meet in Toronto then in person.
You never know. Stranger things have happened. Take care, man.
Okay, bye bye.